Welcome to Moving with Life. This is episode number 18. I am Andy Acosta, and my friend Bryan will be joining me today. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for lending us your ears for the next hour and a half or so. Please subscribe. Please leave reviews. We are on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. So episode number 18 includes me and Bryan. Eddie wasn't able to make it due to schedule conflicts, which usually we try to get it done, or at least we try to schedule, maybe Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. But given we were gigging this past weekend at Hillbillies, and then Sunday was Mother's Day, so I ended up calling it off. I said, you know what, let's save it for Monday. We got to Monday. Eddie wasn't able to make it, so we continued. And as I mentioned towards the beginning of this episode, when you'll hear it in a second, is me and Bryan talk a lot about business because I think it fascinates us, and a lot of things that we've been finding parallel with life and how so many things are able to be connected, and that's what this episode is about. So without further ado, here is Moving with Life. I just wanted to mention this real quick as far as Eddie's not here, so it's only me and Bryan on this adventure today. And I was looking forward to this podcast because I have so much material, I feel like, for the three of us. And I'm probably going to still bring up most of it because next week's going to be something different. I think that's one thing that I've found, whenever I'm writing or creating the material for the podcast, or at least questions, it's, for me, it's only relevant for that time.
Okay.
When I'm looking back at the journal entries that I have, I'm like, damn, that's old as fuck. It's just kind of old. It just feels old. It just feels
old content.
Yeah, it just feels like it's not, at least for
news.
now, right? At least for now, it's not relevant. At least for me. It's just. And maybe if I print it out and let you guys see it and you guys choose, oh, we could still talk about this. I just haven't.
Right.
Also, I just haven't found segues to where I could input that or any particular question that has come up for me previously. That makes sense.
Yeah.
What? Go.
I don't want to. It's been a week.
And it's Monday again, dude. Fucking.
Well, yeah. The last 7 days.
Right.
I don't mean.
No, right.
Whether you go by the start of the week being Sunday or Monday. I don't mean, the calendar week. I just mean what of the last 7 days.
Seriously. That's funny because today at the gym, trainer Monica, we were there and she was working out and I was working, right? So we were there and then she said, she's like, oh, and I was like, hey, you good? She's like, yeah. It's it's just Monday. She's like, oh, she caught herself. She's like, oh, but you don't accept Monday as an excuse. I'm like, for her case, I'm like, there's other reasons that I would let you get by with, but not because it's Monday. I just cannot accept that. I'm sorry, I cannot. Tell me you're tired because you had a busy day, and good you had a busy day.
Yeah.
But it's Monday. That goes back to the psychological calendar thing where it's I can't people, I cannot.
I had a good Sunday, and I thought about it yesterday. I was like, man, tomorrow's Monday, but it doesn't feel like, Monday. And I was so glad that that I felt that way about it. That it's just another work day.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I fell into that groove. I feel like maybe just a little bit for you. You guys just trying to get that concept of Monday out of your thought process.
Well, because for me, Mondays have always been not bad. Sundays were bad for me because I always had some type of, anxiety to start the work week, the
I remember you
school
saying
week.
that.
Sundays were always bad for me because I was always so anxious or nervous or about that Monday, whether it was for school, whether it was work. It was always just so taxing. So yeah, Mondays were a little bit of a nightmare growing up.
But yeah, one thing I am looking forward to, because Luis said, I think I had mentioned to you that Luis had started looking for like football camps.
Right, right, right.
So he he's deciding not to go to the first one because he wants to train for the next one that's hopefully we can go to. The only cross with me is that if it's on a weekend, it'll be in limbo until I find out if we have a gig that day or not.
Right.
It's like, man, like I may still try to convince him to at least go. At least we go. If we get that one's on a Thursday morning, like it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Cause Thursdays right now, I have Thursdays off. Like it's ideal. School will be out, so I'm trying to convince him to we'll go to that one. And that one's in Denton, dude. That North Texas, dude. Like that's to me that's big. The other one's at TCU, so it's just as big.
Yeah.
But his thing is like, oh, I'm gonna be fatigued. I'm gonna be working out. Like the cool thing that I'm sensing, and I hope it portrays in person because I haven't seen him in a couple weeks. Like this weekend, we didn't have him. It's Mother's Day. It was Mother's Day,
Mm-hmm.
so he's with his mom. Stay. So it's flipping the weeks on me. So I had to like just rearrange my brain as well. I think even with yesterday being Monday, I think that's why I still kept myself a little busy. As far as like even on Sunday, like I was in and out from seeing my family, but I
Mhm.
come to my room periodically because it's like for me he's not here, and that it just kind of throws me off where I'd have those extra 6-7 hours with him.
Right.
So, anyways, um, he wants to do that. So, like I said, I hope that his in person portrays because he's saying he's trying to, tell them, hey, like I'm gonna go work out with Andy, but I'll be home before. Like when you get home, I'll be home, so that I just won't be home bored. And he the way he put it to me, and he put so I won't eat myself to death, and he put like little piggy emojis, and I was like,
Oh, man.
that's fair. I'm like, what?
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, whatever it takes, and I hope, like I said, I hope this portrays in person because I hope it's sinking in now, where it's like,
Right.
dude, come on, like we'll get this done, Cool thing, I lent the book Warrior Kid, Way of the Warrior Kid by
Uh-huh.
Jocko Willink. I lent it to Emily, and she actually finished it over the weekend, which is good because I gave it to her Friday.
Wow.
And I told, because on Friday I told her, here, you need to finish this before on the weekend. Like you finish it. She's like, is that a challenge? I'm like, no, I'm telling you to finish reading it over the weekend. I'm like, it's not a hard read. It's only like 186 pages. There's a bunch of pictures. It gives a lot of good a lot of insights that I'm gonna use for our team challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you could pass this on. And then she texted me this, or she didn't text me. She didn't have my phone number. She messaged me this morning. And she said she wants to buy it for her son. That's good. That's the point. It's like it's like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Yes, absolutely. It's good. Dude, I went over so much material yesterday. like because I started off the other day with Saturday. I started re-listening to episode 210 by Tim Ferriss, which it's him, Josh Waitzkin, Adam Robinson, and Ramit Sethi.
Mm-hmm.
So re-listening to it, I was like, okay, I remember everything that Josh talks about. I remember everything that Adam talks about. Adam's where I got the damn SAT theory, which I
Right.
use for everything now. Like everything, dude. Everything makes sense if it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Because like, okay, there's something as small that we can't see or I can't see or someone can't see. It's like, great, it doesn't make sense now. Let's find that variable.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I'm seeing it now. So anyways, coming to yesterday when I decided that, okay, I'm gonna be with my family, but I'm gonna be back in my room as well. I just want to be back and forth. More because I couldn't sit still. It's like me and you were talking about this on Saturday, where it's
Yeah.
like the ADD thing. Like, oh, like if we were kids right now, we would be medically induced, with some type of
Yeah.
medication and bullshit therapy.
Yep.
Which to me, I brought this up to you, where I see these kids, and it's like they just need attention. Attention deficit comes from the fucking adult.
Mm-hmm.
At least for me, that's what I see. Because I talk to them, I help them with their math homework, I help them with their reading, and they're cool. My favorite example I'll say was it was in elementary class, and there's these kids, and I got that sub gig through a client at 9 Round. So they had come up like, oh, like just watch out for these kids, these boys, and whatever. And then so I said, okay. So I didn't put all my focus on them, but I ended up putting my focus on them by the end of the school, and they were like my best friends by the end of the school. And it's like they just need attention, man. It's
Yeah.
so it's not even interesting. I don't like seeing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's to me it's so bad, and I've recently been having conversations about this with someone who works with these kids, and it's sometimes it really just is the fact that no one is basically raising these kids. They're just left off to kind of fend for themselves with all these electronics that we have nowadays,
Yeah.
and nobody's actually raising them. They're just kind of on their own. So bad.
Yeah. And actually today when I was with the class, I did high school today, and at the end of one of the class periods, like 5-2, I said, "Hey guys, like, give me your attention," because of course they were talking, they were on the phones, and I mean they're high school kids, like they're older. Like I think I've mentioned to you where like they're not lost, but I know I'm just gonna have to deal with them when they start working for me. And this is generally speaking, when they start working for me, for you, for
Yeah.
us, when in 5-10 years when they're done with college, um, or in 5 years when they're done with college, like I already foresee having to deal with that. So right now I'm just letting them be, because what needs to be figured out is how to honestly, I think how to incorporate technology. Do you make a classroom Snapchat and communicate information through there, or like a Facebook, like kind of like what they do in college. Like I know in college, only for a couple of classes, we had Facebook pages, and they're like private pages, but they were for our
Hmm.
classroom, and we would have like online. All our online was not through Blackboard; it was through Facebook. That particular history teacher, I'll never forget. It was
Wow.
like History 1302 or something,
Right.
and she and interesting enough, she was very young. Like she was only like 30, 32 with like I don't know if she had her PhD or she was working on her PhD for history.
Yeah.
Either way, but she used Facebook. She didn't use Blackboard. She didn't use anything else.
Do you think that was more effective than going through, I guess, a more, I hate to say traditional, but a more traditional online uh, way?
For me, I was very indifferent only because at that time I was on a complete hustle from school to work. So like I wasn't. It was just part of like it was my Blackboard. Okay, that was it.
Right.
It didn't have an impact for me.
Yeah.
For other people, possibly, and now probably more than ever if it were used now.
Yeah. Because I remember with Blackboard, there were just some things that, there really wasn't like a tutorial or anything, and they weren't as easy to like navigate.
Navigate.
Yeah. So it was
Yeah.
like, what the heck? Like, how do I do this? And reply to like this post and post your own discussion. I was like, what the heck?
And
So
make sure you reply to this thread only, and
exactly.
then you're doing your own
And
thing.
you end up
It's like,
creating something else.
yeah,
Yeah.
man. I only kind of chuckle about this because like recently I was talking to my mom because as much as I want to go back to school, I don't want to spend the money because I'd rather allocate that money to something more.
Right. Yeah.
Like, and what I am scared. This is one of my fears for sure. My fear of uncertainty. Talking about Awaken the Giant for school is that I'm scared I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna have to force feed myself this book that won't be relevant in a couple, even in a year or two, dude. Okay, so when I had my marketing classes, I took a few of them. Like I took like a bunch of them,
Right.
and they were new editions. Every single marketing class I took, by the time I took it, they were new marketing edition books. So I have like 4 different marketing books by the same people.
But a lot of the times, the only thing that changes, at least, I don't know about marketing, but for like economics and finance,
Yeah.
the only things that would change were like the examples and the numbers.
Okay.
Like the concepts have been the
Fair.
same
Right.
forever, which is why a lot of the times professors let you use older editions
Mhm.
because
fair.
nothing much has changed.
Yeah.
So I think that fundamentally things are the same.
Okay.
It's just other variables that change. You can maybe sort of apply those fundamental concepts in different ways, just adapt them.
Right. Yeah, because the thing is, like, if I do go back, and like, I'm glad this came up because I guess I have been kind of on the limb because I honestly, in that case, like, kind of like getting my degree, I just wanted the paper to say like, oh yeah, you did this. I kind of, oh yeah, I got a master. Yeah, fuck it, whatever.
Right.
Like, I don't give a shit. Like, that's 2 years that I was here at home. I walked to class. Like I took a class here and there, and I finished.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. Like, it's not a big deal. Or for me, it's not a big deal.
Right.
One thing that I've pondered on, also, is, you know, talking about like dream chasing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never told this to anybody, and this is lucky for people listening and people who get to see my vlog tomorrow, Tuesday. Like the whole like graduating high school and doing well in high school, like the way I see it, it was for my parents, like to make them happy, and it did. So I'm happy, so it's good.
Right.
College, I eventually liked it, but it was their push. So for me, it still essentially goes back to them.
Mhm.
Because had they just been passive about it, it wouldn't have happened, and I would have been who knows what I would be doing right now at all. Where I'd be or what I'd be doing. Because even then, I wouldn't have gone to Corpus for 5 years. Like or whatever, 4.5 years. So, anyways, like those documents that say, "Oh, you accomplished it," it's like, yeah, it's for my parents. Like my diplomas, I used to have them here in my room. They're in my mom's room. Like they're in my parents' room. Like I don't have them here. Why the hell do I want them? I don't want them. I don't need them.
Yeah.
They're not relevant anymore to me. For my parents, I was the first college graduate. From my family, from them or whatever. So,
Mhm.
it's a big deal for them. Great. That's awesome. It's just something that's hit me, and it's always kind of come back as far as like now trying to make the next step, like getting my master's. Like, well, I'm gonna do it just for the hell of it, just because I can. It's not. There's no intention. I'm just gonna go learn some tools, meet some people, and then that's it.
Right.
You know.
And it's kind of like where I'm on the fence about, you know, going back to school, learning quote unquote the traditional way, or
Right.
just picking up tools and networking with people now. Like all these people, all of our superiors, let's say in the workplace, who maybe didn't get their degrees,
Right.
they learned it from the world around them, from the industry. They learned by doing, not necessarily sitting in a class, face buried in a book, taking finals and going through all this anxiety and,
Right. Right.
all of the stresses that come with the college degree.
The call, yeah, and that's another thing is having to spend brain power, brain energy on like
Yeah.
to do well, because if you don't pass, then that's a waste of money, and
Yeah.
it's like, man, like I hope if and when because right now it's still an if and when. I don't know yet. I
Right.
don't have enough I don't have enough incentive right now to convince me to go back, because I just feel like when I go, I'm gonna go for the hell of it, and it's gonna and maybe when I choose to go, it'll pay for itself, and whatever, I'm just gonna
Right.
get the degree and whatever. Anyways, what I'm gonna lead to now is I read this. Well, actually, this article. I don't know if you sent it to me or if you put. I think you did. This was back in April. It was April 23rd when the Monitor posted this. It says the 7 differences between Gen Z and millennials.
Yep.
So I went back to that one.
It might have been Eddie.
Might have been 80. Okay.
Yeah, I know I had showed you guys one
That was a
from
Huffington
Business
Post.
Insider, I think. Or
Huff-
Huffington Post?
Yeah, I still have that one written.
Yeah, a while back. And
Yeah.
then I think Eddie might have sent that one.
That makes sense. Okay. Well. Okay. So anyway, so what I've been doing lately also is if I come up with an idea or a question, I end up podcast protein my own email to myself, so I won't forget it for later.
Right.
So I was going through it today because I was like, man, like, okay, it's gonna be me and Bryan. Usually, for the most part, me and Bryan revolve around business, stuff like that. 'Cause that's we talk about that, and that's what we talk about. But we always end up connecting it with life,
With everything else.
with
yeah.
everything else. Like it's and that's the cool thing that I hope if we do it well enough to help others understand. Like you go learn some tools, you go take some tools, and you use them in your life.
Yep.
And also that's kind of an angle that I started thinking about yesterday, as far as like my angle on not necessarily life coaching, but what's gonna distinguish me from anybody else. Like everybody does have their own thing. Tony Robbins has his own thing. Gary Vee has his own thing. And like one thing that I for sure have going for me that I could use just their templates alone is that the fact that we live in the valley.
Right.
I feel like I know I could use that, but I don't want to because I know that. Does that make sense? Like I want to learn more to
Yeah.
develop my own now based off these things from Tim Ferriss, from Gary Vee, from all these guys that I read about, that we read about too. Anyways, going back to this thing before I keep digressing like down this freaking rabbit hole. One of the points it was point number 6. It says that for Gen Z, they prefer classrooms that are more collaborative and diverse. Now I don't know what the definition of diverse is, but collaborative I can see because I know that when like today that I was with the high school and then last week I did high school and middle school. They're like, oh, sir, can we work in partners? Oh, sir, can we work in partners? And I feel like even when we were in class, or when we were in school, it's kind of like that, at least at that
Yeah.
age. So it's more of like a camaraderie thing, I guess you could say. But if that leaks over, which we won't know because I'm not in college, but if that mentality were to leak over where they prefer to work in groups and develop a grand idea, that's interesting because I feel like going back to like the general synopsis of these 7 differences, I feel right in the middle. Because the beginning starts with, where Gen Z prefers Snapchat and Instagram over Facebook and Twitter. Today I asked the high school kids, like, hey guys, what apps are you using? I never finished that story. So anyway, so
Mhm.
I asked them like, "Hey guys, what apps are you using?" And one of the girls like, "Oh, sir, you're doing a project." I'm like, "Yes, I'm doing a project." I guess you like I guess they assume that I'm young, but they don't know how. Yeah, I don't know.
Or they've been asked before.
Or maybe they met that's interesting. I didn't even think about that. So something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
And the this is interesting to me is that there were no outliers like in the Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Like it was the same four that I'm using and we're using. You know, you're not using Facebook, but
Right.
generally, still you're still 75% in. As far as like three apps out of four.
Yeah.
One girl said like WhatsApp. This other kid, the sarcastic kid, he's like, "Oh yeah, Kick." He labeled all the freaking apps. I'm like, "Okay, dude, I don't believe you." And and for him, I've already had him. I have him docked in my mind because I don't. He's one of those kids that I don't let him go to the restroom. I don't let him go drink water. You stay in your seat and you do your work. If you
Right.
don't want to do your work, then just sit there and put your name on the paper and turn it in blank. Like right now, like I said at the beginning of this little piece, is that right now there's some kids I cannot help. And a group, the way I'm seeing like high school kids, them as a group, I need time. I would need to be their teacher to change because to them, and this is one thing that it's not bypassed when we took like the substitute like credit thing, but he's like, "Oh, you're the teacher for the day," and this and the teacher who taught us, right? And like I was like, "Oh yeah, like I can see that. Like you need to have control." I had control, but these kids are still 15, 16 years old. Like they have their mindset for now. Like I deal with my cousin. He's 15. I understand the mindset, so I'm not gonna try to change it right now because even for Luis, it's like yeah, it's taking me a year. To
Right.
like I said, his mindset. I'm hoping it's changing and turning into more of an action, not just a mindset. Saying, "Oh yes, I want to do this." Then I go to his house at 8 o'clock in the morning. He's asleep. It's like no, we gotta get to work, right? Whatever.
Right.
Anyways, so yeah, like okay, I did want to mention like the app thing because I was like, man, like I was really hopeful for an outlier. I just wanted something new. I wanted to see or hope that I was hoping that there was gonna be I don't know some app that I haven't heard about yet or something that something that distinguishes the Gen Z from us.
Right.
And so far it's not there yet. So that's interesting. That's still digging into
The
Gen
big
Z.
players are still
Yeah,
there.
where the monitor is saying, oh, it's Snapchat, Instagram over Facebook and Twitter. Maybe that's true for in general terms, but so far what I've seen. I think I've seen still when I walk by the kids and they're on their phone or whatever. I was like, it's Facebook for the most part. I'm not seeing anything else. Facebook and Snapchat are part of the bigger two that I see
Right.
students using in high school. Because in junior high, they're still scared about using their phone. So like they're real tight about it.
Yeah.
The kids are at least. The biggest thing right now in middle school is those fidget spinners.
The spinners.
There's a market right now for fidget spinners.
I've heard.
Hey, has your friend talked about those spinners or no?
What friend?
The one you've been talking with.
No.
That'd been interesting. Yeah, I say see what she said. I'm curious because I think as now as we're talking, it's like man, considering what she deals with, with the kids and stuff, I would be very interested to see.
Well, because because when they're in session, they have things for them to do or to work with or to
Okay.
play with, and I think when they're not, she says that she mainly sees them like on phones or iPads, and I think most of these kids are like elementary school, so it might just be like a junior high type of deal.
Maybe yeah.
That's like the target market, not
Right,
target,
right,
but
yeah.
that's
They're the ones who grabbed onto it.
Yeah.
Speaking of like grabbing on, I read this. So I love my aunts class. All three aunts that teach. I love subbing for them because their schedules are so perfect for me. Like it works. Dude, every single time I sub for one of them, not one of their colleagues, like it's the perfect thing. Like I was telling you this morning, like I have 15 minutes to do exactly what I want.
Right.
8 o'clock in the morning, like I have an hour to myself. Where is it? Is it right here? Okay, so I was reading on MSN, the money link, whatever, and I just wrote the 3 first words, but I think it's like after 3 pivots, this company never thought about selling for $800 million. And so I just wrote on minor details, and I wrote on all 3 pivots that this company did. So Kevin Chow, and I'm only saying Chow because it's CHOU, not CHO. So I don't think it's Cho. I'm assuming it's Chow. He started Kabam. I believe it was called Kabam in 2006. It started as a social media network, a professional social media network like Facebook, but to me, they were maybe the first movers into the nationwide network because they mentioned that when Facebook was, they mentioned that Facebook was still uh, the college only thing. Like it was only being used in colleges still. This is
Mm-hmm.
2006. So this is early Mike Zuckerberg or Mark Zuckerberg, right? So
Right.
so yeah, that makes sense. So the first pivot they did was they went from social media in general, then they turned into a sports app where they were just like providing, I guess, maybe sports information,
Mm-hmm.
which for me, it clicks why it didn't work the first time or with the sports thing because they were talking about like ads and stuff. But ads alone, shoot, think about like ESPN. Like you have ESPN to compete with, you have Fox, you have all these competitive people,
Right.
that have been around for so long. Excuse me. So the first pivot was sports app, and it worked for a little bit, but then what happened, and I wrote this down. There was an inability to monetize given how low ad rates on apps were, so they just couldn't generate enough money by selling ad or by having ads on their games.
Right.
They weren't making enough because they still did 1 million users in 30 days, and they did 60 million in the first year. So they still had plenty of users,
Right.
but the flow, the revenue was not matching what the customer count said, and that's interesting, where it doesn't matter the number of likes or views or shit you have on your Instagram, Facebook or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, and like them, 60 million users, dude, and yet they could not monetize that, which blows my mind.
That's crazy.
That's a lot. I mean, $1 per person, dude. $60 million. You can like, obviously to me it was a free app because they have to compete with ESPN and them. Maybe there's no
Right.
details on that, but this is just assumptions that I'm making. It has to be a free app because ESPN's free, Fox is free, ABC's free, right? So they plan, oh, we're gonna make money through ads. Start advertising ads. Well, all the big game players are with ESPN and shit, anyways. Like it's gonna be hard to get anybody else to pay to be on your app.
Yeah.
Depending on their prices too.
Mm-hmm.
So then, at this point, Kevin said, or he mentioned where given like how much they had grown people wise, but not revenue wise, he didn't see the company going beyond 30 million a year. And I was like, you motherfucker, like 30 million a year, like I get you want your business to grow, but that's where I kind of fidget because like, well, you have 30. Let's say you get to your 30 million, like that's a shit ton of money. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's just interesting. So then the second pivot, I'm assuming around 2008, because I kind of just did the timeline based on 2006, and it took a year to gain 60, so then another year. So by 2008, they made their second pivot. So I don't know if you've heard of this game, Brian, but it's called Kingdoms of Camelot. It's a Facebook game, but it's figure 2008.
It sounds like one of those generic Facebook games about war or something.
Okay, well, I don't know the details on it because I didn't look into it.
Uh-huh.
It was irrelevant for me, but I assume the same thing.
Right.
They made their first $100 first $100 within hours. They made tens of thousands of revenue, and they got hundreds of players within a year. So they had to do that, where he's like, oh, 30 million, I want more. So they pivot yet again, and ended up hitting because I'm assuming he finally found the market he needed to hit, which is Facebook, because there was no games yet, but yet people were starting to monetize Facebook in different ways.
Right. He just needed to find his niche.
Yeah, exactly. And what they mentioned at the end was that the fact that Kevin, like, he's been a gamer all his life, so it was only a matter of like trial and error. Does that make sense?
Or maybe it was just a matter of freaking following your gut, or back to basics. If you've been a gamer all your
For
life, then why would you go into social media that way, or then even sports?
Yeah.
Just stuck to what you know.
Right, and exactly, because he went back full circle, and trying to emulate somebody else. Obviously didn't work. The Facebook imitation, then the sports imitation, they just didn't work. But yet he went and created this whole new thing. So then, let me see what other details I had. That was the first year. So they had 7 million players and 30 million revenue. Oh, sorry. So within hours, they did $100, tens of thousands of dollars in revenue, really quick, and hundreds of players. So in their first year, they gained 7 million players and their 30 million. So they made $30 million in a year of revenue,
Right.
which is crazy. So I guess by the time they got to this point, Facebook picked up on it. They imposed a 30% tax after. So Kevin's like,
Dang.
we need to get the hell out of Facebook.
Yeah.
And it says here, and this would be cool if this is true. So for the third pivot, everybody involved invested everything they had to get them out of Facebook and go mobile.
Mm-hmm.
And they were part of Marvel Contest of Champions, whatever that is. I don't know what it is.
Some Marvel-based like app.
Okay, so they were a part of that, if not the creators of that. So a publisher from South Korea saw it and basically probably said, hey, how much do you want for it? And they gave him a number, and he's like, here's $800 million.
Dang. Dang. That's good stuff. Man, and if anything, this is just to show how many like kind of bumps in the road there can be before you really, hit your mark.
And that's over. I mean, let's say this was even over the course of 4 years. I mean, you still made, let's just say he made 10 million in like the Facebook thing, got taxed 30%, paid that, still kept the rest of it, invested the rest of their stock into themselves to get it off of Facebook, and then they just sold it for 800 million because it's like, oh yeah. Now I think they're based out of Canada. I wish I wrote that part down. Either way.
Man,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I love those stories when stories about, selling your business for insane amounts of money, because I feel that if you're willing to sell, you were probably going to get bored with that business anyway. Like, the passion wasn't there enough to keep it. So it allows you to kind of make some money off of it and then invest it into something else, maybe something you're more interested in.
Yeah, man. And see, this is where we can tie this into like life, which me and you, I know me and you frequently do it. When we're having tea at Starbucks and we're just kind of like collaborating over everything. And I think that would be I wonder. Maybe in a few years, where people would want to hear, we could just do that, having our term like Tim Ferriss has done it, like over like with that episode 210 for you listeners who haven't listened to it, go listen to that one. It's 3 other people and Tim Ferriss, and they just talk in front of 900 people. And actually, speaking of, let me see, right here. So this is from Ramit Sethi. So going back to Ramit, reading his profile, and I mentioned this on my vlog as well. This is a quote from Rumi. He says, I give away 98% of my material for free, and then many of my flagship courses are extremely expensive. In fact, 10 to 100 times what my competitors charge. And then Tim Ferriss says he copies that very thing. So, like, let's say they had 900 people at that auditorium, dude. Probably charge like $4 or $5 grand per seat.
Damn.
Easy.
That's crazy.
And it made it. This was one of the parallels I found yesterday that I was like, okay, I think I'm onto something, because when I gave because I told you this, but I started reading Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins, which I borrowed from Emily. And in reading that, gaining all this knowledge, and Emily brought up something, and I said, well, it's gonna be this much money if you want me to do that, which is basically apply it to her situation, whatever it is. And I gave her a number, and she stopped replying, right? She let it. I guess she let it sit or whatever. So then we continued. So later on, we continued like messaging, and she's like, "Man, no wonder why you're so expensive." And it's like, and when I read this yesterday, that conversation was like 4 or 5 days ago. This was last week, sometime last week. And when I read this, I was like, "Oh!" I felt like Adam Robinson. Like if you listen to him on that 210 episode. When he talks about solving the SAT, and like you eliminate 3 that that aren't, whichever one you think it is, you choose the one that you think it isn't, right. Which whatever, and it's like I felt like that. I was like, oh, there's something here. There's some. I'm gaining something. At least I feel like I'm finally quote unquote gaining something where I am able to give back to people who I'd say, they want the help. They just need that extra guidance, which I'm absolutely down for. I'm down for sharing my tips and stuff, um, regardless. And the cool thing about the podcast for you listening is that this information is for free. Me and Brian talk about that all the time, whether it's
Yep.
on the podcast with Eddie here, with Eddie not here, whether we're out. That's one of the kind of foundation pillars that we have, is that the information's out there, which is probably my biggest contemplation. Go back to my master's degree. It's like, well, why?
Yeah. The information's out there somewhere already.
General Mattis, and I talked about this on my blog too. General Mattis, who's now in the White House, Secretary of Defense, he talks about that, where he's read, because he's well read, and I think, and he has like a library at his house, and don't quote me on this number, but I want to say it was like 700 books that he has in his library, and they're all war, they're all like based on fact, and he says, I'm never surprised on the battlefield because it's already happened before.
Dang. It's interesting.
So there's another parallel. It's like, cool, we're on. It excites the hell out of me that we're onto something, and I love that people don't see it, so that when they see it and the light goes off, it's like, oh, cool. But I want it to be like a cool, like a positive cool, not like, oh, like these guys, not in an egotistical way. I'm saying like, hopefully, like if we explain, like I said, if we explain it good enough, well enough, it's gonna be like, oh man, I get it now.
Yeah.
Which that will be, that hopefully that will come in the next couple years. Tying in the kids real quick, because I had already read this pivot story before this particular class that I asked about the apps, and the question I came up with was like, what's crazy right now? Like, what's crazy out, and what's hip? Like, I'm very out of that mainstream like information circle.
Right.
So today I spent any free time I had, I spent on like reading MSN Money. I went on Snapchat and saw some like articles that I would normally never do it, but I made it a point to do it today because I didn't even take a book with me to school. Usually I take a book with me so I spend my time on that. Whenever I have free time, I spend my time reading a book. And today I was like, no, I need to transfer shit to my podcast journal, because I have not, everything's in my general journal, and like, whenever me and you were talking, or actually whenever we're talking as a podcast, I'll lose places because I have scribbles here and I have things here. So like, I need to find what I still see relevant and write it in my podcast journal so I can keep it in here so I don't get confused when I'm talking with you guys.
Right.
So that was my point. That was my goal today. My goal today was like, any free time is transfer information and go to mainstream media and see what's up. Now, I'm not going to mainstream media to see who died or who didn't die or what the politician said or whatever. I'm going just to see what's like pop news in essence. And that was one of the things that it's so crazy how that happened. And even Kevin, I think there's a quote in there like where he's like he was in shock, 800 million for my stuff, really, and like, yeah, and he gave, however the deal got brokered, done,
Yeah.
And then so I thought of what's crazy right now. What about you, bro? I know we talk often, but I guess maybe in the past few days, have you found anything, like maybe while you're doing any type of research or anything with, because I know you send me articles on Snapchat more than anybody else, so I'm wondering if
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what I sent you. Oh, did I send you guys that video? It was like a TED Talk.
the
Was
AI.
it specifically? Yes, it was AI. And I thought that was so crazy. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but that's something I found, and now I'm talking about it because I'm reliving the moment that I was watching it. And it's so freaking crazy.
Because I think you sent it like on Wednesday or Thursday. I didn't watch it till Friday, but I did watch it eventually.
It was so insane how basically, I think one of the biggest things I took away from it was that in general, we're going to go from like building things to growing them. And that will happen through AI. Like, AI will build itself in ways that we cannot build them, or build
We don't have
these
that
machines.
capability.
Yeah, and then one I guess the main example that they gave was that they basically put this like AI program in a car, and then they raced the car a couple laps around a track, and then they took all that information and basically developed like the perfect chassis, the perfect frame for the car. And then they had, robots build it. But they had to build it because humans couldn't. There's no way we could possibly build that to the precision necessary. So they had an AI analyze all the data from this car, and then reproduce, I guess, the optimal car chassis. And that's what they're saying, I guess, in this TED talk, that's what the future will be. Instead of manufacturing, like, for example, cars, we're gonna be growing them, and it's gonna look like they're growing because they're gonna be so, like, kind of detailed oriented, like the machines making them.
Hmm.
So yeah, I thought that was freaking crazy.
Yeah, yeah. For sure, what kept me in was the chassis, the car detail. Like, oh shit! Like I was
Yeah.
like, oh shit. And they brought up where were they building that bridge?
Oh yeah, it's I think I want to say it was like in Amsterdam,
Amsterdam. Yes. You know, yeah, it is. It is. I'm like,
and it's
that's the name.
basically this bridge building itself. And man, that's just kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, and the one I'm gonna watch next that maybe I can bring next time, and Ed will be here too, is because there's a Sam Harris TED talk
Hmm.
about can we make AI and still control it or keep control of it or something like that. And based on what this guy's talking on this other TED talk is like, they're gonna have their own conscious mind to
Yeah,
go beyond the human capability.
yeah, and man, I kind of struggle with that thought. Like, okay, yeah, we're gonna make basically we're gonna develop software and machines that, I guess, together will be able to build themselves.
Right.
And yeah, okay, what if we can control them? That's fine, awesome. What if we can't?
Yeah. Yeah, because for now, I'd say just put a chip in them and like take it out. Then just let that be the ultimate like plug.
Right.
But then like if
What if they build the chip and insert it themselves? Like,
they just
and
counter it.
yeah, and this sounds so, like, cliche or cheesy to think about because it's kind of one of the big flaws, or the one of the biggest downsides to AI as we have known it in, like, science fiction. You know, like, I think one of the most popular examples that I can think of, it was like iRobot,
Yeah,
at least
I
for
haven't
my
seen
for
it,
my
but
time.
yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, like, they have all these robots who are, I think they're mainly kind of like house servants, and they have like these three rules, and I forget what the rules are.
Mm.
It's like the three laws of robots or something like that,
Okay.
and they're basically um, put into place so that robots never like overtake the humans. But there's this one robot that kind of has his own emotions, and I think he ends up breaking one of the laws, and it's like a huge deal. And yeah, so that's why I say, like, that's probably one of the biggest flaws or downturns to AI as we know it in, like, fiction.
Right, right, right. That's so crazy. I'm gonna tie. Interesting, because actually came up with an AI question today, but tying into the Gen Z versus millennial thing, where they like to work in groups and whatnot. And it's interesting now. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's interesting that they're assuming that they like to work in groups, given how young they are. So like they still have like their high school, they still have their friends. Like their
And
little circle of
and
friends.
I was gonna say that. I was like, well, how do they necessarily know that they
Or
would
assume.
prefer? Yeah, when a lot of these are still in the education system. I
And
think the oldest there are like 22. The
at the
oldest
oh yeah,
in Gen Z are 22. That's only 4 years out of high school.
yeah, it's not and barely if not even done with college yet. I think I finished. I was like 23, 23, like 23, 24 when I finished. So it's like, anyways.
Yeah, there's
So
not a lot of data, I think.
yeah,
But who
yeah.
knows?
Like I said, yeah. Like I said, I didn't think about that till now. It's like, wait a minute,
Yeah,
they're still like young. They're still kids. Like
unless
half of them will still move away for college. Like a lot of them will leave home and like meet new people and be join fraternities, join sororities.
right.
Different things like that.
Unless they're using other facts to kind of come to that conclusion, but I
Right.
don't think the data is necessarily there to say that they 100%, prefer to work in groups.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. So the question I came up with, because my biggest thing is that the the older millennials got their degree and they felt entitled to a management position or some type of at least a middle management and up right position because they got the degree.
Right.
Now, by the time I came along, everybody had a damn degree, right? So that started just slipping away, right? So what I came up with these guys, Gen Z, because at the end of the article on the monitor is, and you can still find this by the way, but anyways, one of the quotes, one of the pieces I wrote down was like, there will be a boom of entrepreneurs. I was like, there's a boom of entrepreneurs already. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I get it. I mean, the only empathetic side I have to this is the fact that like a lot of people aren't so into business the way me and you are, Brian.
Right.
So I get that, but it's not justified to say there's gonna be a boom of entrepreneurs when there's a boom of entrepreneurs. And like, dude, I've been getting a lot of ads like on Instagram and stuff like of entrepreneurs that have like 1,000 followers and they follow like 5,000 people, which I get, what you're trying to do, but because I almost thought about going that route, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna keep it as a musician because like, no, music is still my number one, right? So
Right.
I'm gonna keep it like that. Anyways, I don't want to digress. So when I heard boom of entrepreneurs, I was like, okay, boom of entrepreneurs. They're all gonna be their own bosses. They need people to work for them. Eventually.
So they can't all be entrepreneurs.
Right.
That's when the next generation will come in, and we follow that pattern. Because like I think we've mentioned it before. I feel like maybe we're just kind of following this cycle, and that we're labeled millennials, and we're kind of stamped with all of these like characteristics that I wonder if the millennials have existed before. So, and I think we came to the conclusion, or I came to the conclusion that it has happened. Millennials we were just named that because of the time we grew up in.
Yeah.
But basically, I feel like we have, as like a generation, we have happened before. We have been here before.
Right.
It's just other variables that kind of change some things here and there. But in general, like, we're just a generation in the past relabeled.
Right. And we are a part of the human race. It's just again this little piece of the human race that's happened again.
Yeah, so
cycled through.
if Gen Zers are going to be bosses and entrepreneurs, the next generation is going to work for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the generation after that is going to be tired of their parents working for someone else, so they're going to be another entrepreneur. It's
Which
just
is
going
so
to, yeah.
It's redundant, and it's a cycle that takes like 20 years. So for those who love the cheesemint of like just other people, you're like, oh my god, that's what I was talking about with Luis. He's like, I showed him that millennial video. I think it was a millennial video, and he's like, what about me? What generation? I'm like, you're Gen Z, bro. I'm like, millennials will be saying this shit about you in about 10, 15 years, which I will not stand for.
Exactly.
I think we mentioned like within the last podcast or two, this exact thing where it's like I will not stand for that either because I'm like, either help them or shut the hell up. That's my take on that. As far as leadership and stuff, because this goes back to like parenting and all that stuff too. It's like no, like I will not stand for that. Yesterday, dude, real quick, sorry, we were here. Me and my little cousin, my goddaughter was here. We were here in the room, and we were watching these Disney music videos, and these kids pop up. She's like, they're not my friends, right? I was like, they could be your friends. And she's like, no. I was like, well, why not? She's like, well, I don't like them. I'm like, you don't even know them. I'm like, what do you mean you don't like them? I'm like, you don't know them. You can't do that. I'm like, and at that moment it clicked for me because I stayed persistent because even though as young as she is, she understands a lot. So I wanted to plant that seed. Like, no, you become friends and you learn from each other and whatever. So I planted that seed on her yesterday. I'm like, no, like I will not let you have that mindset. If you're gonna be with me taking care of you right now, you're mine.
Right.
You're my brain to pick, for right now. And I take full advantage of that. But that was one thing that came up was like, no, yeah, you could be friends. You don't even know them. Like, they're in the damn screen. It's like, of course she doesn't get it because, of course, Mickey's talking. And she's like, thank you, Mickey. And he's like, he's my favorite. She's replying to the TV screen.
Right.
Like, I get the 3-year-old thing. But when she says, I'm not their friends, right? And I'm like, well, why? Because I don't like them. Like, you don't even know them. You cannot justify that. I will not let you, as a 3-year-old, think like that. You cannot. There's no freaking way. So anyways, going back to this boom of entrepreneurs. You know how like Walmart has them. Does any HEB have like the express checkouts yet?
The self checkout?
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen
Not
them.
here
I haven't
yet,
been to an HEB in a while, but
Because I think HEB that would have one first here would be the one either on Freddie McCall or
10th and
Trenton.
Trenton?
Yeah, those two. And so I went to 10th Trenton earlier on my way home, so for sure no. So given that Walmart's already gone that route, and I know San Antonio HEBs have some self checkout.
I think I've seen them
We're
in
even
San Antonio.
like full on belt fed where they have a scanner and you put the grocery through. Like there's no teller whatsoever. There's only a bagger. So one of the questions I put, because of them being entrepreneurs and because of the way technology is moving, is like, having a lot of automated AI, a minimum wage jobs. Because a lot of one thing that I think there's a lot of branches here, but given that where AI is going, given the video you showed me, given that kids want to get paid more, given that not everybody can be an entrepreneur, so then you automate those minimum wage jobs and you have basically not even middle management, but like lower management to middle. You have those jobs available
Right.
only basically. Now I don't know how that would work, but it's just something that came up with me. Like are we gonna end up being or having a workplace where it's automated AI doing the minimum wage jobs?
I think so. Like I forgot when I had read something about. I forgot when I read this and where it was talking about, but it was a McDonald's somewhere, maybe in Europe or in Asia, where these McDonald's are like, there's like no people there. You walk up to a screen, you click what you want, and then you like pick it up at the end of the line.
Right.
Like there was nobody there, like to take your order or take your payment.
That's so crazy.
Everything was just automated,
Mm-hmm.
full on, digital.
Yeah. And I see that so crazy, and that makes sense. That's one of those things like, oh, it doesn't make sense. It's like, no, it makes perfect sense because no one wants to work for $7.50 an hour anymore.
Yeah,
You know, like-
and seeing where we're heading with technology, and this comment about Gen Zers being entrepreneurs, of course, because there's not going to be entry level jobs for them,
Mhm.
so they're going to go off and do their own thing.
Right.
And now with social media and the internet, and I feel like we just keep repeating ourselves, but
Yeah.
the world economy is like a level playing field at this point.
Yeah.
People, you can start up your business in your room, never have to leave. Like
Yeah.
drop shipping,
Yeah.
you'd never have to freaking leave your office, your room. Just all you're doing is basically connecting the consumer with the manufacturer, and you're getting a cut of that.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna tie in what you were saying as far as like entry level jobs, because the way the monitor said it was, because this is quoting the monitor, because those who are part of Generation Z feel pressure to gain corporate experience early, they are competing with millennials who are more likely to wait to gain the same type of experience. The good news for millennials, who are more likely to chase jobs in the corporate world, is that 72% of those in Generation Z wish to take what they learn and apply it to their own business, versus 64% of millennials who have the same goal. So I just want to tie in that to what you were saying. That's all I wanted to say. Is like, man, where and that's where it then ends with like, oh, there's gonna be a boom of entrepreneurs. It's like, no, there's a boom. Go on YouTube, type in blog, and find everybody that has a vlog right now. Go to Instagram, type in entrepreneur on tag, and see how many thousands of people. I wouldn't even bother searching.
I do think that they say boom because it'll be bigger than what's already out there. Think about it. We're millennials, and like you say, there's a boom now. Well, these freaking Gen Zers, they're not even like old enough to drive. Like
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Imagine there's a lot of YouTubers and vloggers out there who are part of Generation Z already. Just imagine if you quantify that to the ones who are still in school when they come up, it's gonna be even bigger. I really think so. It's
Yeah,
gonna be even
right,
bigger
that-
than what there is now.
And that only makes sense. More numbers, obviously, And
Exactly.
obviously, the success rate's it's gonna grow, but only because the numbers in general are growing,
Yeah.
which makes sense. And that's, oh man, I guess tying in like news and shit is where like like, oh, this has risen 20% in whatever years. It's like, yeah, how many million people are involved in this? Like, what any project? This is generally speaking, where like I guess tying in how I don't like news the dramatization of the news where they
Mhm.
like, oh, this grew 20% over the last year or whatever. It's like, yeah, because like there's like
The
20,
population has
yeah, it's like
grown.
20 million people like doing the same thing. You know, it's like, yeah, it's gonna grow. Like that only makes sense to me. I don't know. Repeating myself one last time is that I just don't like the way that the news makes certain things very big. You know, where there's
Yeah.
more important things to be talking about. But right, I don't know if it ever changed because I'm so, like I said, I'm so out of the mainstream thing. But the point where the news has their falling out with the bullshit, which I think we're on the move of that because of Gary Vee, like powerful players like that, powerful entrepreneurs like that,
Mhm.
that the news is on their way out on the negative aspects. Because I know, like, as far as the valley and like my attitude, like that, well, that girl, the trainer, like she's not a trainer, but she works out, but she helps with like she helps nutrition shops and stuff that I told you about from Instagram. She's from here from the valley. I don't mention her name because I don't know her personally, but she added me and whatever. But she's here from the valley,
Okay.
and and one of the posts she did because she just got like I guess a sponsorship with Pump Nutrition, I guess from McAllen.
Uh huh.
But on her post, she put something along the lines of, you know, I love the city that I live in and I love being here, and I know we have a long way to go, but I'm here to like help you get healthier. You know, I'm here to help the valley, or I'm here to help McAllen get healthier.
Right.
And I commented back, I was like, hey, that's freaking awesome. And then I ended up direct messaging him like, hey, like I see you're on a mission. I think that's freaking awesome because, and I didn't even mention like, oh, I'm this. No, I can imagine because she's a pretty girl, you know, whatever. I can imagine she probably gets like 1,000, you know, she gets thousands of messages from
Right.
guys.
Right.
I'm like, no, fuck that shit. I'm seeing the macro goal. I'm like, that's freaking awesome. And I told her too. I'm like, I told her in the comment, and I ended up just direct messaging. I'm like, hey, like that's good. I think what you're doing is good. I think there needs to be more of that, and hopefully within these next 5 years there will be that surge of. I think there'll be the surge of that. Now, next point is that I think that Gen Zs should hit that. You know, learn like the concept of learning,
Mhm.
spreading positivity. Now, I think it would be hard to convince some of the older people, but I think with the right tactics, it would work. Because I think that'd be a market that could be hit here. As far as spreading positivity,
Right.
or if you find a job that you like, and this is generally speaking too, because I'm doing everything that I like, right? We talk about that all the time. But implementing that positive note, you know, implementing that, which like I mean, it's gonna take a while because what I've seen, you know, especially the kids, you know, they're they're tied to their parents, right? They got raised by the parents, so their parents are negative, then they have to deal with that separation,
Mhm.
you know. But anyways, I guess as we're progressing now, as we're talking, I'm thinking like, man, like that'd be an interesting market or interesting uh, thing to do because there's not. I don't feel like there's enough positivity here. You know, there's a lot of ego.
Yeah. I was gonna say every time I hear anybody talk, anybody from the valley talk about the valley, it's always putting things down. Like, I mean, what are you comparing it to?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the things that kind of differentiate the two places? Because I've always said this, we're still a developing economy in business terms.
Right.
We haven't hit a that specific target, a size, we haven't hit any of those things that the bigger cities have hit. So really, you can't expect things to be the same.
Right. Yeah.
And then with that type of mentality, that's not gonna make things better.
Right. It's just it's basically detrimental to like just everything that whatever developing is going on, and then by the time something gets developed, they're like kind of over it because they've gone to San Antonio and done it a bunch of times, or
Yeah.
whatever. I'm talking general, general terms, where it's that. But anyways, yeah. So when I saw that, I'm like, cool. Like, so I followed her back and whatever. Like, yeah, like I want to see what she does. I want to see her progress because that's good, And she's hitting, of course, she's hitting like the health thing, So that's definitely a good thing on my radar. But yeah, her comments and her angle just impressed me as far as like her mission seems like beyond working out and being healthy for herself, but then wanting to help others
Right.
get on that
Wanting to
path.
spread that.
And then ultimately leading to optimism, just leading to that. Because she was like, it wasn't just about health physically. It's also mental health. We've talked about it, I think briefly, but
And I don't know. I don't know if it's just kind of like the circles or the topics or my interests, but I feel like I do see a lot of that in like some of the people that I see on social media, not from the valley, but just bigger, I guess, like public figures or vloggers, YouTubers. Like they're always, regardless of their industry or their market, whether it be tech, health, entrepreneurship, motivation. I feel like they all kind of hit motivation, and they all kind of try to speak about kind of like real world shit.
yeah,
With like mental health issues, or whether it be kind of like struggling, when you fall in, when you hit a bump in the road, stuff like that. I feel like these people are always kind of trying to hit that motivation, regardless of what they're doing.
right.
And man, I know we've mentioned before how there's people out there who are kind of like motivating or trying to motivate, but they're not really doing it themselves, or they may not even believe it. They're just doing it for the heck of it.
Yeah,
Well, we've talked about that in the past, but I feel like when these people that I'm talking about now, like the vloggers and YouTubers, when they do it, I feel like it's genuine. At least from what
right,
I've seen,
right.
it's very genuine, and they're kind of living it too. They're trying to be healthier and happier themselves,
Right.
and trying to spread that as it is. So, with the boom of entrepreneurs coming in, supposedly,
Yeah, yeah.
through Gen Z,
Right.
I think that along with that will come all of these social media accounts, with these entrepreneurs, and hopefully they all hit kind of that motivation and positivity in a very genuine way.
Yeah, because that in general, I've also been now thinking about the valley way more than I ever used to.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like, okay, not necessarily okay, what's here and what's not here, but just starting to look at people more. Does that make sense? Like just trying to not even trying to read people, just interacting more. Just watching people's moves. Watching them, seeing what they're doing. Man, there was someone that I listened to recently. It was Neil Strauss. It was yesterday. And funny thing about Neil Strauss is he's like the dating guru, which I didn't know that. I just knew he was like he met people, like he knows how to meet people. He has this game called he has this book called The Game.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it's the game of dating. Like it's like full on, like that's what he does professionally, because he uses
Right.
these tactics for himself. And going back to using your own tactics, like he uses them. So he's like, well, I just write a book, and now he has a decent following, and he's actually in Tools of Titans. As far as Neil, like he just talks about reading people,
Mm-hmm.
and in his case it's very specific because it's his of course his majority following is males. That he does seminars and shit for males, like, and guys come to him like, okay, how do I do this? And he tells them. And actually, it's not actually I bought the video. So Tim Ferriss has this series called Tim Ferriss Experiment,
Mm-hmm.
which he then goes and does these things, like him and is it Josh Waitzkin? No, not Josh Waitzkin. I don't even want to get the name wrong. So him and somebody else go and help this yoga instructor boom her business. Help her boom her business.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I told you, but I told Eddie about it. I think about the coffee shop thing where you go in, you ask for 10% off.
Yep.
Okay,
I watched the video.
Okay, yeah. So then there's another video of the dating game or something like that with Tim Ferriss, and
Mm-hmm.
Neil Strauss is the one in that video. So the only thing I was gonna say was, like, his is very specific, and I then generalize it for myself right now, because like that's one thing that I do is I try I try to read you to ask you a good question, because like, well, I'm interested. If you're in a bad mood, I'm interested. If you're in a good mood, I'm interested. Why? That's always I always refer to that, and that's one of the things he says is like, why are you asking? What's your reasoning? And actually, he is he here? Did I write it down? Damn it, I didn't write it down. There's a Jimmy Kimmel excerpt where Neil Strauss had just released one of his other books after the
Mhm.
game, and Jessica Alba's guest, just a guest,
Right.
looking for the fucking name, just a guest, and he talks about how, like, especially Jessica Alba's gorgeous. You know, she's pretty as hell, right?
Right.
So he's like, you already know. And this is what he asked her. He's like, you know you're pretty. You know that. So tell me 3 things about you that are good that don't involve being pretty or like whatever. So she gave him this thing. She gave him like the 3 things, right? And but at the end of it, and dude, he's so good at like flowing and like okay, that's the end of the experiment. And he then goes back to Jimmy Kimmel. It's so interesting
Damn.
because he literally plays a role for 2 minutes. He uses the tactic, and then and he literally goes, and see Jimmy like that's how you do it and whatever. And I'm like, geez, like that quick. And one guy from the crowd yelled like, "You're hot," right? Like she was trying. I think she said she was loyal, I think on time, and she paused, and that's when the guy said, "You're hot," right? And then, but she gave another one, and they were good, like things that described her that were not physical attractions,
Right.
because his thing is like, you know, you're hot, I know you're pretty, or whatever, so you as the male, or and he says it works vice versa too, and you the female, like you already know that, so get in, you know, in my terms, get into their head. And I do that with everybody, which is an interesting parallel that I have that I take to a general form that I haven't used it on, you know, a girl, you
Right.
know, but maybe in essence I am, because I do that habitually now. You know,
Yeah.
I ask, hey, how's your day, or how's your weekend, or especially today's Monday. You know, how's your weekend, and then we go from there, and I see how your weekend was. Oh, it was bad. Well, why? Like, what was, you know, what happened? Oh, it was great. Oh, cool. What'd you do? Did you get to see your mom? You know, you branch, and dude, Neil talks about all that. And it's interesting how, of course, how he uses it, and the tactics still fall true for anything trying to develop conversation.
Right. Man, that's so interesting. I feel like I need a lot of that. I need to learn how to really develop conversation, because depending on the person, I can be good at it or I can be bad at it. But I want to, you know, be able to work with both. With, you know, if the people that I would naturally be bad with conversing, I want to know how can we do this and strengthen that not necessarily relationship, but give more value to the conversation, not just kind of small talk for no reason.
Exactly. And that's the cool thing that I like is the value. I talked about value. We talk about value all the time.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, get beyond that small talk. And I'm always interested in getting beyond the small talk. I'm like, I want to know you. I want to see what you're about. And like, I'm probably going to study Neil Strauss a little more just to get that, because he gives some good tactics. Anyway, I found the quote of what he told Jessica Alba. It says, if you're beautiful, so what? Name 3 things about yourself that would want to make me want to get to know you better. Like, what would they be? And she gave him, like, you know, I'm on time, I'm loyal, and she didn't say humble. She said something else. Anyways, so then the definition is like, have someone who's not interested in you sell themselves to you instead of you trying to sell yourself to somebody by impressing them or trying to impress them.
So say that again. Someone who's not.
Okay, let's say you're interested in somebody, right?
Okay.
So what you do, and this goes back to SAT theory.
Mhm.
It's so great. So
Yeah.
normally,
Doesn't make sense.
Exactly, it doesn't make sense. So let me.
That's why I'm asking you to repeat it,
Yes.
because I was like, wait.
So let me get through this again. So you're interested in girl A, right?
Okay.
And you're conversing with her, and it seems like things are going well, but you're trying to impress her. So instead, you have them
Try to impress
sell
me.
themselves to you.
Gotcha.
And the only way you can do that is by asking questions, or asking and to get deeper, to ask the right questions. So it's have someone who's not interested in you sell themselves to you.
Interesting.
Super.
Interesting.
And like, for you females that are listening to this episode, like, yeah, like it's very tactical, but what I will argue is that if the guy's willing to do some research and do this to get to know you,
It's worth it.
I think he's giving you some value, so you might want to give it a shot. That's what I say, because for me personally, over the small talk. Now, guys, be smart too.
Yeah.
Don't. There's also a limit. Like, he talks about like getting a girl's phone number. Like, he'll talk about a friend function, and he's like, hey, if you want information, you should text me. He won't say, hey, can I have your phone number? He'll say, like, oh, this event's going on Saturday. All my friends are going to be there. You should bring some friends, whatever. But he's still talking one-on-one.
Right.
So his thing is, like, you should text me. not say, hey, what's your number? No, hey, you should text me, like, if you want to, if you want to come. That's all he did. That's it. If she doesn't reply, if she doesn't respond, or maybe responds in a not negative, but just says no or
Or
no
just
subtly,
not in a way
not
that will get you her
right,
number.
exactly. Then he leaves it alone. Like you don't bother with it,
Right.
and that makes sense because it saves brain energy. It saves brain function. Then you beating yourself up over like, oh, should I ask her for a number? Like I don't know if she's interested or not. It's like no, you just
Yeah.
you develop
Damn,
those
that's so
things,
good.
dude. So
And I mean, maybe honestly, like maybe these are things that are a little obvious to other people, but personally, I'm just so bad at the dating game type of deal. So like, and I'm pretty bad just socially in general, right?
yeah, you're
So
introvert. If you notice the intronaut, it's intronaut for a reason.
yeah, so I'm just kind of socially awkward and really bad with some stuff, and not on purpose, but things just happen or they don't. So like I said, I think like maybe some of the things might be obvious.
Yeah.
Like when you said it, hey, we'll say some like you should text me. Well, damn, that's genius. But I feel like at the same time like this is widely known already, but it just kind of it was new to me or it's just genius to me because I don't do it.
Right,
I
new
don't
to
think
you.
about
And
it.
then what's so important that Neil exemplifies is like just the wording, the arrangement of words. So it's not
Man,
anything.
that I believe in. I truly believe that the wording of things can have a big impact on the message or the reaction that you
The
get.
reaction you get, yeah. And then so I watched. Oh, go ahead. You said something.
No,
Oh, I think you said you said like damn.
no, I'm still
It's like,
I'm still reacting to all that.
So I watched another video, and this one's, I believe it's titled "How to How to Get Over Approach Anxiety," and this is the only point I wrote down because he talked several. It's like a 9 minute video. It's super short. That's what I liked about the Neo videos. Like they're all like generic like third party videos that I guess people have uploaded from seminars. But because I know I have this is. And when Eddie comes back, I'm gonna bring up the sugar thing again. But like just to close out that final thought of the sugar thing. Anyways,
Yeah.
but because I've mentioned this on the podcast where I talked to myself very poorly, and starting today I flipped it, and it's helped me just not want like sweets or crave like things. So the approach anxiety, how to deal with it. The main point that I wrote down was start treating yourself the way you want the person you're approaching to treat you. So don't treat yourself the way you want to be treated. No, the person that you interested in. Let's say like girl that you're
trying
interested
to
in.
impress. That you're
Yeah,
trying to,
yeah. Whatever that is.
Yeah.
If you can't talk to yourself appropriately, you can't expect somebody else to do the same to you if you don't respect. And that goes back to respecting yourself, which maybe we haven't talked about, but that's one of those general virtues that I think we know about.
Right.
Because it does tie into treat yourself the way you want to be treated, but this one takes it a step further with like, you can't expect someone to treat you with love if you can't love yourself.
Yeah.
In this case, if it's a female or in girls, spouse, whatever. But that was what I took away from anxiety approach, and I'm like I said, I worked on it, but I will tell you during my lunch break today, I had a great lunch, and like in my head, I didn't contemplate whether or not I was gonna buy candy. I wanted one. I wanted to buy one, but I didn't. But then I said, and people probably think I sound like a loony. If it doesn't make sense, then that's perfect. I don't want it to make sense right now. I want it to make sense later. Is saying, hey, using the approach anxiety, using this anxiety approach of like, how do I want to be treated by someone that I care about, or if I'm interested in somebody, how do I want it? So I did that. And I feel like it helped, with also like I drink more water. I did also the actual physical movements to not buy that candy, but I did start using this, and I'm gonna see what happens. See where it goes, because it's definitely not in my ballpark to talk to myself nicely.
Never thought about it that way.
Like this approach, like or this
Yeah,
idea.
yeah. Sounds very, very interesting. Then again, everything Neil Strauss right now
It's
sounds
kind of
interesting.
mind blowing,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I
Well, like
know.
I said, that's probably like my weak point. You know.
It's fair. The social
Well,
aspect
yeah,
of
the
your,
social aspect.
generally speaking.
And some people don't believe me when I tell them. They're like, "You?" It's like, well, yeah, because depending on the person, I can be better about things.
Yeah.
But generally, I'm not.
Because it's hard to move from as far as like Neil Strauss, like from all the business we
I
talked
think-
about into Neil
yeah.
Strauss.
Yeah.
Because Neil Strauss, to me, it still ties into the generic foundations of communicating and everything with human interaction. And one thing that Gary Vee talks about on one of his recent, I think, Instagram like snippets that he's posted was where he's not investing into things, he's investing into people.
And I think, in a more, I guess, literal sense, that's what Marcus Lemonis does.
Who's that?
He's a entrepreneur that doesn't invest in the stock market. He invests in small businesses.
Yes. Okay.
Remember?
Okay. Remember. Yes, I do remember.
We've talked about it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So that's what he does. He doesn't have his money in the market. He has his money in other people, and they're making him money, but with his kind of guidance and leadership.
Right.
And
Right.
when he implements his templates for a successful business, he has ownership. He has stake in the companies, and of course, they generate him money, but
Right.
he doesn't have his money in the market. He has his money in people.
So awesome. Hey, what did you think about the 1,000 True Fans? I mean, you briefly told me over text, but I feel like we can probably elaborate here, like over like conversation.
I think it's like I told you, it was to me, it's kind of like one of those things that once you read it, it clicks, it makes sense, and it's simple, but you just kind of never really give it much thought before.
Mm-hmm.
At least for me, it was almost like the objective of that. In the past, I probably would have overcomplicated it, and then when I think about it after reading it, I was like, well, yeah, no duh. Like, really, all you need is 1,000 fans, and then you kind of like set the goal, how much you want to make off of them, and you're golden.
Right,
it makes
right.
perfect sense. So
awesome.
generally speaking, yes, like it's one of those great ideas that is not that complicated. It's simple.
Super simple.
Simple
And
but genius.
An interesting dichotomy that I thought about on Saturday after me and you met up, and then later on in the evening. Because in Awaken the Giant Within, Tony Robbins mentions oversimplifying sometimes. And I think that oversimplification can also be the detail. I think it could be connected to that detail that's so specific that you're thinking about, but yet you're still missing the broad range, which you can do, getting too detailed and getting too simple. Does that make sense? And I'm only bringing this up very generally because it's to me it's still kind of tied in where you talk about it's simple. To me, it's like it's simple enough.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it was too simple,
then you'd
probably
be missing information.
You'd be missing exactly. You'd be missing
makes
context.
sense.
Where you get too detailed, then you're too far into the hole. Too far into the rabbit hole. You can't see the picture.
Yeah.
Especially for you entrepreneurs, when you kids listen to this, or any other listeners that are entrepreneurs, that thought of oversimplifying and being too detailed. The being too macro or being too micro. Both the dichotomy, which is my favorite word. I'm just gonna read a piece from the Tools of Titan. So it's on page 292, I believe, and it's part of. Actually, speaking of it, it's part of Ramit Sethi's profile. It's in that profile, and to summarize this article that was written by Kevin Kelly. Success need not be complicated. Just start with making 1,000 people extremely, extremely happy. And I would say that summarizes. If you want to read it, you can read it. You can go search it up or go buy the book. But yeah, reading it and talk. $100 per person, dude. Like
over the year, it's not even telling you to do it like in a day, in a week, in a
Yeah,
month.
yeah, no.
Over a year.
Yeah, just go.
You have plenty of time to make $100 off of one person. Now just get 1,000 people, and And then it even says like, well, maybe you don't need $100,000 a year. Then you adjust to that.
Yeah.
Or maybe you can't get 1,000 fans. We'll bring it down to
Or maybe you just
800,
don't have it
700.
yet. You don't have
just
that.
adjust.
You don't have, or you don't have enough context yet.
Right.
That's what I get.
So
you
you
don't
try
have
to
enough
make
maturity
more
yet.
money off of that individual person because there are less people. So
I know it's definitely
super awesome.
made me think about that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, man. And honestly, I tied in like my parents. I tied in Luis. I tied in like Eddie. I tied in you. I tied in like Gonzo and the people that I work with at work at 9 Round 2. Because like, if I count for time and money with the people that I know so far, like, I think I'd reach the 1,000 quicker. But because people give me their time and I try to give people my time.
It's like, I know Gary Vee has brought this up when you're trying to maybe like kind of get a shout out on Instagram or whatever. It's not just what they can do for you, but what value can you bring to them to kind of incentivize them giving you a shout out,
Right.
So it's not just a one way deal.
Yeah, so reading that 1,000 fans, I made my list and I titled it Road to 1,000. I that's gonna be a new segment of my journal, and I'm gonna keep writing names and see what's up. And like I said, right now I have 13, and they include like my immediate family, like the family that they literally give me money, or they in this case where I'm in the house and I don't have to pay rent.
Right.
I count that, like that's $500 I don't have to spend a month. That's $6,000 a year that I don't have to spend. And so I count for that. I count for time that you give me. I count for time that Gonzo and JJ and all them give me. Eddie, I work for Eddie, so he pays me. So I count for that money. 9 Round, they pay me. I count for that money.
Right.
And if we do it, let's say based off the $100, I'm making plenty off of Eddie and 9 Round. As far as if we use those numbers, yeah, for sure. Like that segment's being taken care of. It's enough. It's enough where people are fiending for like just more money or for more materialistic things or whatever it may be that involves money in general. I think and I'm not even talking financial freedom. I think that's different. I think financial freedom is different than just being hungry for money, specifically money.
Yeah.
And then dichotomy, these kids in high school don't know a damn thing about money, and they're walking with their Yetis and they're walking with their iPhone 7s, and I get the phone thing, but I mean, okay, that's what we're dealing with. I mean, right? But it makes sense because it doesn't make sense, but that's the generation that they're that's what they're doing.
I've never said this out loud because I feel like there's already kind of an initiative out there. But I wish there was more financial literacy, either in schools or just kind of like seminars for young people, for students.
Dude, oh, shit. Okay, so I thought about the same thing for leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So combining the both. Because me and you could do a
That'd be
seminar.
awesome. Yeah.
Now, to promote that, we need some ground. But it's an idea that I thought about myself in my field.
Yeah.
And I say my field is leadership. I happen to do music. I happen to do exercise. I happen to help my mom with her Mary Kay business. But I deal with leadership. That's my thing. That's what I deal with.
Yeah.
And for you, find out. That's what you're doing right now. That's what you know right now. Even when you have an account on Fiverr. Doing Excel spreadsheets. For you listeners.
Oh yeah.
If you need anything on Excel done that you want to delegate out, Bryan, contact Bryan. He can do that for you.
I'll probably leave that at the end. Just give me some time to look that up.
And then
and I'll leave it in the notes.
Do that, yeah. Say text me that so I can put it in the show notes too. But anyway, dude, that's so crazy But see, for those of you listening, those are the parallels that we find, but through doing research, through doing things, And I just want to see more of it, I guess, for the well-being of like you and your family, not the greediness of like, oh, I want a Maserati, oh, I want a Lamborghini, oh, I want a 5-story house or whatever, or mansion or whatever that materialistic thing may be. Speaking of non-materialistic things, I'm hopefully gonna start my investing account tomorrow. I'm pretty stoked. Hopefully it goes through. Get that going. Finally.
Good shit.
Nothing's falling yet as far as the market, so it's still relatively going up. As far as the year, like right now, I think one of the S&Ps is down, but I may go with growth over value. I think that's the better bet, not safer. Like they're both gonna, they're both going up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. The thing is also like that's why I was asking you earlier. Is like 'cause I just don't know enough details, and I guess I can ask an advisor on the Vanguard that I'm gonna use, but it still just gives me that ounce of uncertainty that I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know which one to choose.
And I feel like of course I've heard these concepts before in school, and at that point I made my decision that I'd probably like a value growth.
You like value?
But that's just me. Even though it's kind of like, well, yeah, because you're not receiving anything. Like I said, you don't get a dividend because the company's just reinvesting their income. But it allows for growth. Now, choose wisely what companies you'd rather do that with. I guess make
Yeah.
sure like do your research, and if it's a young company, then the potential's there.
Yeah.
If they're kind of established and maybe plateauing, then you don't want them to. Not that you don't want them to,
Yeah.
but maybe it's not as smart for them to be reinvesting their money in themselves.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe pay you a
'Cause that's the
dividend.
thing. Like for the S&P 500, like they're involved with Apple and Google and all these big companies. So
I think Apple consistently reinvests.
yeah,
I think.
that makes sense. Um, so so is that how that works? Like let's say I go with S&P 500, don't they like spread my money like themselves, or how does that work? I don't
Well,
know
I
how
don't.
that
I
works.
don't know.
That's one of the questions I do have.
I don't know where. I guess that the category that you were talking about. I don't know if that's something like. Because I think, from what I understood from your picture, it was one of the differences was a category, right?
Mhm.
From two, and it was asking you to buy one of two, or
It was well on the category. One was value and one was growth.
right. But at the top, I saw that you could buy either one. You know what I mean?
I think it was just like the number here. Let me pull it up. Where's my phone?
Yeah, there was. I guess it's two, and one was Vanguard S&P 500 Growth ETF. The other one, Vanguard S&P 500. I'm guessing it's value cuts off.
Yeah, it's just a value.
then-
Is one's growth ETF, one's value ETF.
Right. So I'm thinking that maybe depending on which one you choose, it'll give you like a blend that fits that category.
Okay.
A
Okay.
blend of
Okay.
companies.
I see what you're saying.
You know
I see
what I
what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. And that I trust your judgment. Like I've said this before. Like as far as like your judgment, Luis's judgment. I trust you guys' little intuition way more than not more than mine. Now, because I'm changing. I'm trying to adjust my self thoughts.
Right.
But I do have. Okay. I just have it on a high. No, I have it on a high seat.
Yeah, yeah.
In my thought processes. So yeah, that's the goal. Hopefully, I mean, I'll find out right now if I'm gonna be able to do it tomorrow. I'll find out right now.
Okay.
Because I should have, if I have the cash here, I'll deposit in my savings. Now, I guess that's another thing I need to find out if they'll take it out of my savings, or if I have to put in my checking and do that. Either way, doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter. I just wonder.
Yeah, I feel like it wouldn't matter as long as you have the information to
Right.
the account.
Yeah, that's what I figured too. I'm like, if everything's correct, it shouldn't matter. It's still going. They're gonna take it. Whatever.
Right.
Not a big deal. But that's man. I'm looking. I'm stoked for all the fluctuations that are gonna happen with that money.
You're stoked for that roller coaster
Yeah,
ride.
yeah. Dude. It's that sense of adventure though. Like, but
Yeah.
through watching grass move.
Yeah. Man.
Because regardless, bro, like and I remember you mentioned this maybe like 2-3 episodes ago, maybe, where you had said that the S&P 500 is gonna fall soon or it's gonna fall eventually. It's like, well, that makes sense. It's supposed to. There's always correction or there's a correction at least once a year, and the bears happen every so often. Now we've been in a bull, which means we're going up for the past like 8-9 years, like going on 9 years, I think 8 years at least.
Well, since the crash.
Since the crash, once it started redeveloping late, I think 09 is when it started growing, and it hasn't stopped. So it's been that long, 09 to now, so 8 years, almost to like the month, basically, almost to the quarter of growth. So it's coming. So that's when you said that, it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense to me because Tony Robbins mentions it in the book. So it's like, okay, having that mental preparation has done a lot for me though. Like that, like uncertainty is
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, that makes sense what you're telling me. Like I'm not scared. Like I know it's supposed to happen. I know I'm also gonna grow, and it's so funny because the psychology. Because I was doing this today on purpose, is where I click like the 5 year graph, and I click the day graph, and I click the 5 year graph, and I click the day graph, and I click and I just going back and forth, and it's like, don't look at the. And I said this before. Like, if you when you invest, do not look at the day graph. Look at the 5 year graph, and as long as it's going up, you're good.
I did that too. At some point in college, I was doing that a lot, but only to actually kind of reassure myself how little the day graph matters, or the week graph,
Yeah,
or the
yeah,
month.
yeah, yeah. It does
Because you
not.
can, yeah, in the day or in the week, you can see it like going up, and then maybe you look at the 5 year, and it's been kind of coming down, or vice versa.
Yeah, because and to add on to this is, I only so I'm investing my 3 grand. That's what I'm gonna do, and then, uh, dude, I've been hauling ass, so I'm probably gonna get a little more than 3 grand invested, which is great. Like, which
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to because I've just been trying to just haul ass through it. Like I've been telling you since I first started this idea, since I read the book.
Right.
Um, but once I get to 10, probably once I get to 12,000, I'm gonna then go to the full on S&P ETF, which is it's the S&P as a whole, which has the cool thing about the S&P as a whole ETF is that the fees are less. So for the growth and value, you're paying 0.15%,
Mm-hmm.
and for the full on S&P, which is you need at least a minimum 10,000 invested, it's a 0.04.
Oh shit.
So yeah, so like, see that's
It's like
something
9 basis points.
yeah, that's something I learned in the book.
Mhm.
That I'm like, okay, I know what to look for now. Not just that, and that's specifically why I'm going to lifeguard Vanguard. Yeah, you're gonna save my life.
Yeah, save your life.
So I'm, oh man, dude, like that giddiness is like it's amplifying me because I'm just like, okay, and the biggest thing that I have to say, also is just you gotta let it sit. You keep putting in money, but don't look at that day graph.
Yeah.
Then Tony Robbins talks about that. Talks about the day graph and whatnot. But super stoked for that. Um, Next thing that I'm also looking at because of you is the container thing that we talked about. This I haven't released that episode, so no one knows what we talked about
Oh,
yet.
that's
So
right. I saw one today on 10th Street,
really,
but it was more than what I told you. It was like $1,200 for an 8x20.
dude, I will spend that much money.
Well, but there's still a lot of other things.
I know
For
well,
the actual building,
right,
for the
right. No, yeah,
developing of it,
right.
there's other things. But yeah, there was one there.
But dude, compare that to buying a house, bro.
No, yeah.
Like,
Dude,
like,
I thought about it.
Like when that day that me and you were talking about you didn't send me that because you had already sent me that video, but
I
that
sent it to you the Tuesday I called in.
okay, so that weekend,
Yeah, that's when you watched it.
that's when I watched it, and then I talked to my dad about it because they had the containers at the movies because they were doing that, they were remaking the
Oh, yeah,
IMAX
yeah.
and all that stuff, so they have all those containers. I'm like, Dad, my future house. I pointed at the trailer. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm gonna stack a bunch of those together and make a house. Like, I mean,
Dude, talk about like fucking childhood fort building days. Oh my god.
oh man, that's so exciting. And like, yeah, I can't say much more than how giddy I am about that shit. Like,
It's been recorded. Just wait for it.
yeah, just wait for it because it's not out yet. I might for that episode actually because I have that one. I still have our like third episode that I have from back in from when we first started
Uh-huh.
that never went up. I might do like a YouTube only thing for that later on in
Okay.
the year. So I might save it for that because I feel like that one's good. So I don't want to go too far into this container thing because it will be released eventually. But no, yeah, with accounting all of the requirements for safety and whatnot, like, dude, yeah, like absolutely, like we'll get into that ASAP. I was telling my
Yeah.
dad about it, and he's like, yeah, and then when I brought up because you brought the safety, and then I brought the safety to my dad. And he's like, oh, I didn't even think about that. I'm like, yeah, like it makes sense though because the structure is gonna be flawed, right? And that's one reason why it stays together. Period. When they make these containers. Either way, so we did that, and then it just kind of got as I started talking about investing. That's like my thought process for investing. So when I think of investing, I think of not only Vanguard, but I think of the housing, the housing market, how it's gonna change, and how I'm like really looking forward to it. Like I'm looking forward, and this is pretty cool. Maybe insight to my thought process. I'm looking forward to being a part of it, not just watching it happen. Because I feel like we can do something there.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. That's my point of view. I'm very optimistic about that. Very.
I think so too. I'm just I'm just hesitant because it hasn't been done before, and this is kind of my general belief. The pioneers are the ones at risk
Yeah,
and
the
who
first
will
movers.
most likely fail.
Yeah.
Like Apple wasn't the first to produce an MP3 player or like a mobile music device.
Right.
It had been done before, and then they just improved upon it.
Yep.
So that's just one example to kind of support that
Yeah.
idea.
Give you. Speaking of going back to Awaken the Giant, support that pillar, that idea
Yes.
that I was talking about. I don't want to get too much into that detail, only because I don't have the book here with me in my room, so I'm not gonna go and get it and come back. But I can talk about that. Because actually, when Eddie comes back, we're gonna dive into that book.
Good deal.
For sure. So now we'll wrap it up. And man, dude, we spent like another 20 minutes like talking because it's like just found another
Good,
spark
yeah.
that freaking came up. For everybody listening, hopefully, I hope you enjoyed it. Obviously, if you ever, and this is also opening up a can of worms because I've said this on my vlog, but if you ever want to like just see us pick each other's brains, like hit us, like we'll go to Starbucks and just watch us like work if you want.
Yeah.
Like we're not at Starbucks frequently, but
when we are,
but when we go, fucking get after it. Take some books, take some literature, then we just go off on ideas and questions that have come up. And I think I brought up a lot of stuff that came up then, and then I did bring up a lot of stuff that I read about today. Anyways, so Brian, if you could give your social media, did you find your Fiverr thing?
I did. It's pretty much the same. So I'm gonna switch it up on you guys though this time because you can find me on Twitter and Instagram under Bryan Alejandro _ BryanAlejandro _ and on Fiverr you can actually find me under Bryan Alejandro no _. So if you need any help with Excel and stuff like that, go ahead and shoot me a message or just request a gig.
Boom. Do it. Don't procrastinate. This is one thing I use. One term I used a lot today. I was like, "Don't procrastinate. Do your work." With the kids today.
Yeah.
Anyways, so my Instagram and Twitter are the same. They are Andy Walker _lead. That is for Instagram and Twitter. And then on Facebook, I know it's / Andy Walker lead as well. All together, no underscore, no nothing. So that's what those social media accounts. I am pushing my Snapchat because one thing that I'm kind of gravitating to is like it's kind of a little more personal, like Snapchat.
Yeah.
So like I'm kind of taking that angle. Like on Saturday, I was at my cousin's quinceañera, and then I had my goddaughter. So on my Instagram and everywhere else, I'm like, hey, come to my Snapchat if you want to see my crazy goddaughter, which it was great. But it seems like I'm not only going to use her for that, but that's what my Snapchat, I think that's what my Snapchat's for, and that's I like about it. The next thing I'm going to probably create within the week is a WhatsApp.
Okay.
So people can contact me if they want to, like personally. Of course, there's Facebook. I have Facebook Messenger. Just add me on Facebook. There's Instagram messengers, Twitter direct messaging. There's so many ways of direct message, but I don't know if I read this from who I read this from. Either way, I read it today or maybe yesterday. But as far as no, it's probably Neil Strauss. But just that personal, that personal feeling, personal sense. And the challenge coming up for 9 round, like our challenge. So I'm like, fuck, like, I really don't want to give my phone number out. Like I really don't. Like it's nothing against anybody, but guys, like I don't want my personal phone turned into a business phone yet. It's going to. I'm just trying to let it sit for now.
Right.
I'm not looking for the instant gratification of that. So with that in mind, I'm gonna create a WhatsApp soon. But for now, you can find me on Snapchat, you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, all the main media sources right now. I mean, I'm on there. I'm on YouTube now. There's no specific username yet because I have to read so many like subscribers and shit for YouTube. So now, just search up Andy Walker, Andy Vlog, or find me on Facebook. Then find the link, and it's all tied in together. Send me an email. I always post the emails here on the show notes for this for the podcast. So we will talk next time. Plan on Eddie being here. Friday there's a fight, and I want to go to that because one of my jiu-jitsu professors is going to be there, or coaches, BJJ coaches. He's fighting Friday night, so I want to do that Friday. maybe record Saturday depending on our schedules. I don't have anything. I'm not gigging, so I'll be free. But we'll wait till we get there. We'll wait till we get closer and see what's
Yeah.
up because I don't have anything planned, and more so because I have my cousin with me, so everything revolves around him when he's with me. So and we've established that. So that's what that is. Enough blabbering. We will see you next time.